Also been a wave of progressive candidates winning Democratic primaries the last 2 weeks. On Tuesday, a 29-year-old Democratic socialist defeated a longtime incumbent in Colorado, the latest in a streak of far-left victories from the Centennial State to New York and beyond. While some party leaders are pushing for moderate candidates moving forward, our next guest, Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in Michigan, Abdul El-Sayed, is hoping the recent trend continues when voters in his state head to the polls next month. And he just secured an endorsement from prominent progressive Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who argues that he is, quote, building a winning coalition by putting forward an agenda that speaks directly to working people. And Abdul El-Sayed joins us now. So good to see you again. Let's start there with this obviously significant endorsement from AOC. Why do you think right now candidates on the left, the real progressives in the party, yourself included, seem to have so much momentum?
Well, we've taken the time to listen. I myself have been to 110 different cities, 450 public events. We go everywhere. We talk to everyone. And no matter where you go, people are deeply frustrated by the fact that they can't afford a dignified life. They're worried about somebody getting sick and having to hit that $6,000 deductible. They're worried about being able to pay just for the meat to be able to grill up on July 4th. They're worried about being able to afford the utilities. And we're speaking to what it looks like to take corporate hands off of our politics so that our politics can actually be about trying to make our lives more affordable, standing with unions, guaranteeing health care through Medicare for all. And I think that is winning up and down the ballot because for too long we've been focused on parties and where the parties are going rather than the people and what the people need. And I think this movement is about the people and what we can do to actually serve them.
So yesterday you gave a television interview. You were asked about the Middle East and you expressed some frustration that you were always asked about in Israel, but never asked as to whether a Palestinian state had a right to exist. So let's do that now. Do you believe a Palestinian state has a right to exist?
Should that be the will of the free Palestinian people, then yes. But here's the point. At the end of the day, we have this debate here in America about what we ought to be doing over there. But I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for all people. And the decision about what happens in the future to create the ultimate peace should be between the Palestinian people and Jewish Israeli people about how they want to live moving forward. And so it's not actually our decision to make. And I'll tell you this, the question about Israel having a right to exist is separate from whether or not Israel has the right to our tax dollars. And too many politicians spending huge amounts of money in this race through AIPAC think that our best use of our tax dollars is to be sent over there to drop bombs over there rather than to invest in healthcare and schools and housing here. And I happen to believe, as the next senator from Michigan, that I want my tax dollars spent in Michigan.
So that message there, what you just said about the Palestinian state, but also the Israeli state, American taxpayers, do you think, I mean, certainly right now in the Democratic primary, there's some energy behind that idea. But can that win in a general election?
I'll tell you what. There is no room I've been to where somebody doesn't come up to me and says, you know, I voted for Donald Trump and I'm voting for you. Now, that might break some minds in New York or D.C., but here in Michigan, people understand that we're struggling. And they say, look, I want America first. I thought that's what that guy was going to give me. And then he went off to Venezuela and then Greenland and Iran. I think you really want to make sure I have health care here. I think you really care about the quality of my kid's school. And that's what I want too. So I'm voting for you. And so I think that can win in the general election. I think that can win nationwide.
It's Ali Vitale in Washington, D.C. You know, one of the things that I hear on Capitol Hill in the aftermath of what happened in New York primaries, in the aftermath of what happened in Colorado primaries, is just simply trying to play the game of addition. How do Democrats retake the House? How do Democrats retake the Senate? But I think implicit in that is a question of when members of the Democratic Socialist Party come in as part of the Democratic Party, where is the line? You know, where does DSA start and the Democratic Party end? And I wonder how you're thinking about that as someone who is on the more progressive side of the spectrum and is trying to embrace this very big tent for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, Ali, I really appreciate the question. First, I don't identify as a socialist. I just read about capitalism. And I can tell you that capitalism, its biggest danger was never government regulation. Its biggest danger was always monopoly and oligopoly. And we've gotten to a point in our economy right now where no matter what you want to buy, what you want to pay for, there are like 2 or 3 mega conglomerates that get to decide what that price is. They use AI and algorithms to collude to raise your prices on you. I think part of the reason they get to do that is because corporations have too much of a say in who our elected officials are, so they have too much of a say in our governance. I just want regulation on capitalism so that actually works for people. I'm a doctor, and I saw that worst of all in healthcare. I wrote a book on Medicare for all. We don't need private health insurance. We need guaranteed health insurance. And we could do that easily if we were willing to get past big pharma, big insurance, big hospitals who are dominating our system right now. So we can do hard things, and we can actually provide for people if we're willing to break the chokehold that too many corporations and special interests have on our politics.
You know, when you speak about the oligopoly, when you speak about who is getting rich right now as so many Americans are suffering, a lot of Americans are looking at Silicon Valley. And they're thinking to themselves, how is it that artificial intelligence as an industry is booming beyond precedent while people are struggling on Main Street? And so how do you propose dealing with that? How do you propose taking control, perhaps, of an industry that is going beyond what anyone had imagined?
Thank you so much for asking that question, because it's a question I get asked at every single town hall I do. People are worried about a data center in their backyard. They're worried about whether or not they're going to have a job in the era of AI. We've proposed a plan called AI under democracy. Now, AI is new technology, but democracy is quite old technology that we've used to govern ourselves and the things that we create for a very long time. And I trust it to be able to govern AI as well. Right now, we have AI being created under the incentives driven by the greed of very, very rich billionaires, and I guess a trillionaire too. I think the best thing that we can do is break away new AI companies from old school internet companies, set them up as corporations that are focused on the public good, not just their bottom line, and make sure that we have democratically elected or appointed folks on each of their boards. If we do that, then we can make sure that the incentives that they are focused on, like curing cancer, are what they do instead of figuring out how to take half of our jobs.
Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in the state of Michigan, Abdul El-Sayed. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.